Hello Moto GP enthusiasts. Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Davide Tardozzi laid out a blunt assessment of Ducati's early season troubles. Aprilia have taken a clear step forward, the GP26 is showing repeatable weaknesses, and Marc Márquez is not yet back to his old self. The factory boss mixed technical diagnosis with a measured call to action. 3 weeks to Jerez to bring meaningful updates and start closing the gap. After a weekend that fell short of expectations at the Circuit of the Americas, Marc Márquez offered a blunt self-assessment. His struggles are personal, not mechanical. The 9-time champion finished 5th in Austin, accepted responsibility for a sprint incident that cost him a penalty, and laid out a clear plan: 3 weeks to work on his starts and his position on the bike before Jerez. Bagnaia arrived in Austin buoyed by a strong sprint and the hope of turning momentum into a solid Grand Prix. Instead, the long race exposed a recurring Sunday problem: early competitiveness that collapses as the rear tire disintegrates. The result was a tumble to 10th and a blunt verdict from the Ducati rider: on this day, there simply was no way to be fast. Digia and Antonio left Austin with mixed emotions. The VR46 rider celebrated a career-first pole and finished as the best Ducati in the race, yet the result also exposed a recurring weakness in the Desma set-aside package: a lack of front-end support under braking and on corner entry that forces the team into compromises over race distance. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Marquez did not hide behind excuses. Rather than blame the Ducati or track quirks, he pinpointed the opening laps as his Achilles heel. When tires are fresh and the bike is at its most aggressive, he can't yet ride it in the way he needs to. That admission reframes the problem as one of adaptation and recovery. "It's me, not the bike." The core issue, Marquez explained, is feel and position. He described a sense of being in a position, not a natural position, which leaves him riding defensively rather than making the decisive moves that define his best laps. The result: he can be fast once the race settles, but he struggles to make the difference when it matters most. "I need to really understand how to improve the first few laps. I don't feel comfortable on the bike." If the opening laps are compromised, the whole weekend becomes a recovery mission rather than a hunt for victory. Austin's sprint incident, a misjudged move that also took Digia and Antonio out, brought a long lap penalty and a public apology. Marquez accepted the sanction and acknowledged its race day cost, but he also emphasized the broader context: physical recovery from last year's shoulder injury and the need to find a new performance baseline. The penalty was a tactical blow. The bigger story is Marquez's willingness to treat the weekend as a diagnostic exercise rather than a crisis. Marquez noted a familiar pattern: his best laps come later in races, once tires and rhythm settle. That suggests the raw speed remains, but the capacity to impose it from the start is missing. He believes 3 weeks of focused work can shift that balance ahead of Jerez. "When you're fast everywhere. We'll try to take a step forward there, and I especially want to take a step forward in myself more than in the bike." The distinction matters. If Marquez can shorten the gap between his opening and closing pace, Ducati's package will be far more threatening across a full race. With the European swing looming, Marquez has a clear, personal to-do list: refine his seating and braking position, rebuild confidence in the opening laps, and use the 3-week window to recover strength and timing. He's not promising instant miracles, only a focused, measurable plan. Champions often respond to setbacks with methodical work rather than headlines. Marquez's approach is consistent with that tradition: diagnose, train, and return sharper. What Marquez didn't say on TV, that the problem is internal, not mechanical, is the most revealing line of the weekend. Austin exposed the gap between his late race potency and early race vulnerability. His answer is personal work, not technical blame. If he can translate 3 weeks of focused recovery into stronger opening laps, the Ducati will be the platform it once was for his brilliance. Until then, the paddock watches to see whether the man who once dominated Austin can find his new 100%. Tardozzi did not sugarcoat the situation. After 3 rounds, Ducati sits behind a resurgent Aprilia and must confront both rider fitness and machine behavior. He acknowledged Aprilia's gains and admitted Borgo Panigale's development this winter has not matched the Noali leap. If we compare last year's data with this year's, they've gained 7 or 8 tenths, while we've only gained 1 or 2. When a team principal publicly quantifies a rival's advantage, it signals urgency, and a roadmap for engineers and riders to follow. Tardozzi was candid about Marquez's condition. The Indonesia crash still casts a shadow. While Marc can produce bursts of pace once he finds rhythm, he's not at 100% and the physical aftereffects remain visible in the paddock. What happened in Indonesia still has consequences. It's still not right. Physical recovery is unpredictable. Ducati must balance pushing for results with protecting their riders' long-term performance curve. Beyond fitness, Tardozzi highlighted a repeatable technical issue: excessive rear tire wear, especially on right-handers. Riders report the GP26 pushes on entry, forcing rotation from the rear and accelerating degradation, a pattern that has cost them in the closing laps. Digia, Antonio, and Bagnaia clearly stated that they couldn't control the rear tire. The wear was excessive. This is not a one-off setup quirk. It's a systemic interaction between chassis, aero, and tire that requires coordinated engineering fixes. Aprilia's performance jump is real and measurable. Tardozzi congratulated Rivola's team while stressing Ducati's capacity to respond. With 3 weeks until Jerez, Borgo Panigale plans targeted updates. But the window is tight and expectations must be managed. We have to hurry. We expect something from the engineers. I'm sure Gigi is the first to be unhappy with this situation. Tardozzi refused to declare the season lost. 19 races remain, and Ducati will use the European swing to test solutions. The message was pragmatic: admit the deficit, prioritize fixes that protect the rear tire, and support Marquez's recovery so the team can compete consistently. The next rounds will reveal whether Ducati's response is reactive or decisive. If they can stabilize tire behavior and restore rider confidence, the championship fight remains open. Tardozzi's frank assessment is a clear call to arms. Ducati must solve a technical imbalance and help Marquez find his peak again. Aprilia's rise has forced Borgo Panigale into a rapid development cycle, one that will test engineering depth, rider resilience, and strategic patience. The coming weeks will show whether Ducati can turn honesty into progress, or whether Aprilia's advantage becomes the defining story of the season. Bagnaia's weekend began well. A confident sprint and a front-row start suggested the Desmercedesai might finally deliver a full weekend. In the race he initially ran with the leaders, but within 8 laps the rear grip evaporated and his pace collapsed. What began as an attack turned into damage limitation. From the first lap, I couldn't push and I wore out my tires after 8 laps. Bagnaia described the bike as heavier and less grippy in warm-up and race trim. The sensation was not just slower lap times, but a loss of confidence. The rear would spin as soon as he leaned right, making corner entry a gamble and late laps a test of nerve. I felt like the bike was much heavier and had less grip. In the last 2 laps I was completely at the limit. Rider feedback points to a handling imbalance rather than isolated tire degradation. When the machine feels unpredictable, even measured pace becomes risky. Bagnaia's technical red echoes a growing chorus. The GP26 tends to push on entry, forcing riders to rely on the rear to initiate turns. That rear-dependent rotation accelerates wear and produces the spinning and vibration he reported. The consequence is a bike that is fast in short bursts but fragile over race distance. If the chassis and aero demand rear-led rotation, engineers must either alter the bike's balance or find setup windows that protect the rear, a complex task under race pressure. Bagnaia singled out Aprilia's ability to go fast without destroying tires as the key difference. While Ducati once led the field in tire management, the current GP26 forces a compromise. Either accept a bike that brakes and turns less cleanly or sacrifice rear life to maintain pace. Aprilia's package currently avoids that trade-off. Aprilia has taken a huge step forward. They don't wear out their tires despite going so fast. The gap is both technical and strategic. Ducati must decide whether to chase outright grip or to rebalance the bike for sustainable race performance. Bagnaia's honesty gives Ducati a clear target: stop the rear from being overloaded in cornering. Solutions may include chassis geometry tweaks, suspension changes, or aerodynamic adjustments, all requiring validation before Jerez. The rider's priority is to find a setup that allows him to push from the start without paying for it later. The season is long, but repeated Sunday failures cannot persist. Ducati's engineers have the resources. The challenge is turning theory into consistent race pace across circuits. Austin was a reminder that speed alone is not enough. Pecco Bagnaia still has the pace to fight at the front, but until Ducati fixes the GP26 tendency to push and destroy the rear, Sundays will remain a struggle. The task is technical and urgent. Make the bike predictable on entry, save the rear, and the results should follow. Saturday's historic pole was a high point. Digia felt that one with the bike and proved he can extract a single-lap rocket from the GP26. Sunday, however, revealed the other side of the coin. He was the fastest Ducati on track, finishing fourth, but the gap to the podium underlined that raw speed in qualifying does not yet translate into sustained race performance. "I'm happy with the work the team did. I was the best Ducati, but we need to close the gap because the competition is getting fiercer." Pole position confirmed potential. The race confirmed a structural imbalance that must be addressed. Antonio's technical read was blunt. Rivals can brake later and use the front wheel to initiate turns, while the Ducati package currently sits closer to its limit and must rely on the rear to rotate the bike. That reliance accelerates rear wear and leaves the front without the grip needed to maintain cornering speed as the race progresses. The others can brake later, engage the brakes, and use the front wheel to turn, but we're much closer to the limit and have to use the rear. Digia described a weekend of contrasts. The GP26 felt agile and fast in Sector 1, allowing him to push hard, but that aggression came at a cost. As the rear tire faded, the bike stopped responding the way he wanted, making corner entry unpredictable and forcing him to compromise lines and speed. The result was a race where early promise turned into careful management. Rider confidence is as important as lap time. When the machine becomes unpredictable, even a fast rider must change approach. The underlying issue is balance. Ducati's strength has long been rear stability, but rivals have improved front-end performance, shifting the competitive window. Digia's feedback points engineers towards strengthening front support and redistributing loads so the front can be used more effectively at braking and turn-in without overtaxing the rear. Solutions will likely span suspension geometry, brake feel and aero balance. Fixing the symptom requires addressing the chassis and tire interaction as a system. Despite the limitations, Digia remained upbeat. The team communication was strong, the qualifying pace encouraging, and the race result, best Ducati, a sign that progress is possible. He urged patience but demanded urgency. Close the braking gap and the GP26 will be competitive again across a full race distance. "Our rear end is excellent, but we rely on it too much. If we keep going like this, we can do great things." Austin was a weekend of contrasts for Fabio Di Giannantonio. Historic personal highs and a reminder of the work still needed on the Desmercedes. Pole and fourth place show the rider and bike have the ingredients. The task for Borgo Panigale is to rebalance the package so those ingredients hold together for 25 laps, not just one. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your Moto GP news update. And see you next time!